Hello and welcome. Our top focus for today is Nigeria, where the West African country is looking to strengthen its diplomatic ties with India. On the invitation of the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to hold his first bilateral visit to the West African region on the 16th and 17th of November. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Nigeria is coming after a gap of 17 years. The last time an Indian Prime Minister visited Nigeria was in 2007. The then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had visited Abuja and elevated the relations between the two countries to the status of strategic partnership. Speaking about the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi, India's Foreign Ministry highlighted about how the diplomatic ties between India and Nigeria have been very cordial.
Both India and Nigeria enjoy strong cordial relationship for a very long time, since 1960, ever since it won independence. Relationship are underpinned by shared values of democracy, respect for pluralism, rule of law and diversity. Both the countries are multi-religious, multi-ethnic and multi-linguistic countries.
Now, India's Foreign Ministry said that the visit would include a ceremonial welcome for Prime Minister Modi by President Tinubu, followed by a one-on-one and a delegation-level meeting between the two leaders. The two leaders will also be exchanging 5 memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, in areas including culture, geological survey, the digital public infrastructure, customs, traditional medicine, among others. Now, during his visit to Abuja, Prime Minister Modi will also be interacting with the Indian diaspora in the West African country. India has a strong diasporic presence in Nigeria. There are about 60,000 people of Indian origin living in the country, with Hinduism being a largely common religion among the Indian community. But it is not just the government that is looking forward to hosting Prime Minister Modi. The West African country's citizens are also extending a hearty welcome ahead of the visit. In a video shared by the Indian Embassy in Nigeria, Hindi language lovers have extended a special welcome to the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy.
नगमे खुशियां बिखर रही है, दबे पाँव से कुछ कह रही है, आज के दिन कुछ खास है, पधारे हमारे यहाँ एक खास मेहमान है, खुशियों के साथ उनका स्वागत करते हैं और ये हमारा सौभाग्य है। भारत के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नाइजीरिया के आने पर हम आपका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं एवं अभिनंदन करते हैं।
Now, among African nations, Nigeria is the second largest trading partner of India. The bilateral trade between the two countries has reached close to $15 billion. And a significant part of this trade is coming from oil imports from Nigeria into India. Indian companies also have a strong presence in West African country. Now, these companies, which are about 200 in number, have cumulatively invested $27 billion in Nigeria, and they are the second largest employment provider in the country. Additionally, India has also offered close to $400 million of assistance to Nigeria, some of which has been used in developing the power sector in the West African country. But the relationship is not just economic. In terms of defense, India has helped Nigeria to establish several of its military institutions, particularly the National Defense Academy and the National War College in Nigeria. The two countries also hold a strategic and counterterrorism dialogue to identify areas of cooperation to fight terrorism. Nigeria has also shown its interest in procuring India's light combat aircraft and helicopter. Beyond the economic and military partnerships, India and Nigeria's cooperation has spanned across different sectors, such as education, renewable energy, pharmaceutical, power, and infrastructure development. Now, Prime Minister Modi's visit is coming amid a personal crisis for President Tinubu at home. Tinubu has been criticized for his economic policies that has created a cost of living crisis for Nigerians. In such a scenario, laying a red carpet for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and strengthening cooperation between the two democratic countries might just boost President Bola Tinubu's image in the country. Now, to discuss more on this, we have with us Dr. Ambrose Igboke, an international affairs analyst from Enugu in Nigeria. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, Alyson. It's good to be here.
Great to speak with you, Doctor. Now, what are the key areas of cooperation and the agreements that are expected to be the focus of discussions between Prime Minister Modi and President Tinubu, given the significance of this visit after 17 long years?
It's very worrisome that for 17 years, an Indian Prime Minister has not visited Nigeria. Because India and Nigeria have a very strong relationship, as you have said earlier. As far back as 1958, India already have a diplomatic mission with Nigeria. Remember that India has a common history with Nigeria, being the colonial masters were the same Britain, the same period of time we got our independence. We are members of the Commonwealth. And I remember that India has always cooperated with Nigeria in terms of manpower development. In the 70s and 80s, I remember as a child growing up in the Delta Steel Company in Alaja in Warri, I had a lot of Indian neighbors, Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Sanguta, Mr. Mukherjee. All of them were engineers that came from India for exchange program with my uncle, who I'm living with, who is also an engineer. I remember also that they had what they called MECON, Metallurgical Engineering Consultants of Nigeria, that were exchanging visits with consultants in Nigeria and also consultants in India. So there was a lot of cooperation between them. I remember the Russians, the Indians were the ones that helped to develop the steel plant in Nigeria. So over the years also, there were some times we had a lot of Indian lecturers in Nigerian universities. A lot of them were here teaching all sorts of subjects in the university, and also Nigerians going over there for exchange programs. So relationship has been deep. And I don't know what happened in the last 17 years. It's something that should not have happened. But I'm glad that President Tinubu is bringing back that relationship. We have a lot of Indians here in Nigeria that are doing businesses all over the country, bringing up industries, factories, and all. So we have a very deep connection with India in Nigeria.
Right. Absolutely. And how could this visit impact the economic and trade relationship between India and Nigeria, particularly in sectors like energy, technology, and infrastructure? You have touched on some of that.
Yeah, India has accelerated more than Nigeria. Nigeria is still in the backwaters of economic development and technological development. We are almost at the same pace with India in the 70s and 80s. Something happened to Nigeria in the 90s, and we went backwards. So while India has been able to come out from a lot of its poverty by developing its human resources, especially in the area of ICT development and digitization, Nigerians are also talented like the Indians, but the Nigerian government over the years have refused to develop the Nigerian manpower. So when it comes to infrastructure like energy, Nigeria has a lot to learn. When it comes to ICT, Nigeria has a lot to learn from India. When we come to pharmaceuticals, while India has developed their own traditional medicine, Nigeria rather condemns its own. So we have a lot to also learn from India. But also, Nigeria should also be careful, because most of the bilateral relationships Nigeria signed in the past have always favored the other country and not Nigeria. So this time they should be mutually beneficial for both countries, so that we can grow while India is also trying to support us.
And what does Prime Minister Modi's visit signal about India's broader foreign policy strategy in Africa? And how might this affect Nigeria's geopolitical partnerships and regional influence?
Well, it's for the good of Nigeria to partner with India. India has been respectfully, partnering with Nigeria. Unlike some of the partnerships we get from the West, which behaves as if it is helping the country, meanwhile it's exploiting it. I think India comes with a mutually respected standpoint with Nigeria, and I think Nigeria should dig deep to see how they can benefit more from trading with India. Apart from oil, outside the crude oil, we have a lot to also trade with India. Human resources need to be developed further. Let me even tell you, a lot of Nigerians when we cannot solve our medical problems here, what of the time, where do we go to? We go to India for medical assistance. So apart from these areas, I think also the President Tinubu should be looking at how to develop our health sector using the India expertise, so that we also can have, we can reduce medical tourism and deepen our own health care system also.
Yeah. Great to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time and for being with us on First Post Africa.
Thank you very much, Alyson, for having me.